Good.
You can start, Fluffy. Open.
Okay. Okay. Thank you everyone for coming here. Thank you to Tracy to spend your time here. I will open the session in Indonesia first to brief the participant for GameSeed, and then I will come back to you, right? Oke. Thank you buat teman-teman yang udah join. Seperti biasa, kita bakal mulai tepat waktu di jam 7. Jadi ini adalah sesi terakhir dari tim Google ya. Ini adalah Google AdMob akan ngebahas tentang bagaimana meningkatkan how to improve revenue, optimize revenue from ads. We already have session for how to optimize revenue from in-app purchase. Now we have one for the in-game advertisement, right? Oke, nanti mungkin buat teman-teman silakan, karena ini sesi terakhir dari Google, buat lebih open buat tanya, karena ini sesi terakhir juga buat terkait dengan revenue ya, dengan optimasi revenue. Dan nanti jangan lupa setelah sesi training ini, di room ini juga kita akan ngebahas tentang announcement terkait grand final, tentang ad credit dan grand final persiapannya ya. Jadi mungkin teman-teman silakan join in. Buat yang belum join bisa diminta buat datang juga ya. Oke, let's get started. Oke. Okay, thank you for Tracy. Yeah, so we are here at the week 6 on incubation for GameSeed. We already have 20 teams who already have their games, and some of them are already released on the Play Store in early access. And now some of them already integrate analytics. We already learned from Jin, and we already learned from Zong also to how to use the update the Play Store page, and now we are ready to implement the advertisement in the game, right? So I think hopefully this session will help the rest of the team to understand and improve their implementation for ads. Okay. The session is yours. Okay.
Thanks, Weffy. Hi, everyone. So I would like to introduce myself. I'm Tracy Phan, Strategic Partner Manager at Google AdMob. In my role, I work with app developer as well as game developers to really help them define and also fine-tune their monetization strategy. And I've been very lucky to work with a lot of developers across Southeast Asia. And today it's my pleasure to work with you. And thanks for joining this session. I hope that after this session, you can take away some of the knowledge about, Google AdMob, as well as how to really formalize your strategy in apps advertising. Like I said, the focus of the sessions will be on ad monetization. And I'm going to talk about some of the features on Google AdMob as well as Firebase as well. And then at the end of this session, we probably would have 15 to 20 minutes to ask questions and discuss whatever I'm presenting right now. So feel free to take note or take any of questions, and we're going to assess them later. So not to let you wait further, I'm just going to just dive in. So first of all, if we look at the macroeconomics and the macros of the mobile game trends, right? In 2022, last year, we have around 90 billion mobile games downloads. And that's a really good thing in terms of that volume. And the two takeaway I wanted to highlight in this session is that first, because of the potential in mobile gaming, we do see some headroom for you as new developers can actually leverage the mobile games and, generate a business model around it. But the second thing is that we do see, compared to the pandemic numbers, the growth year over year is slowing down a bit. And that is why you really need to hone on into your monetization strategy, whether it's IAP or in-app ads. Now, next one is a very interesting trend. So I've talked about how important it is for you to really hone on your monetization strategy. And what we've observed in the past few years is that developers or game studios are actually looking into different ways to monetize their apps. And for this, we call it hybrid monetization. So it's purely monetizing with different stream of revenue, IAP and ads together. So if you look at the number in 2016, only 26% of the top mobile game actually generate revenues in both streams, IAP and ads. But up to 2020, 58% of them are actually looking into those different revenue streams. I was in Vietnam last 2 weeks in the biggest event for gaming there, and having heard about like hybrid monetization is one of the focus for the studios there as well. So I'm also going to talk about how other studios have successfully built the business model using hybrid. So Gung-Ho is a game developer in Japan. One of their, I think that they had tried with AdMob is they actually using rewarded ads to really bring in more revenue for their biggest segment of user, which is Japanese market. And they did see 300% uplift working with us in ad advertising. So that really tells you, if you really hone in the strategy and if you really pay attention to in-app advertising, you can really increase the revenue and build a sustainable business model around it. Now, so today I'm going to focus mainly on 3 pillars for in-app advertising. First is how to choose the right formats for your game. I'm sure when you're sitting here, your games might be in different genres, so that different formats would work differently. And then second is how to, like deliver the best practice for maximum user engagement, and at the same time also maximize your revenue. And third is always have a strategy and also have a mindset in mind that everything needs to be tested and you need to collect data before coming to result, and you need to do a lot of tweak and testing in order to optimize. So I'm going to go through the first pillar is how to choose the right format of ads for your game. So from left to right, you can see there are 4 main formats. Interstitial, which is a format that usually put between transition. So those can be slot into your level transition. And banner ads, which is more like a static format, can embed it into gameplay. Rewarded ads, which really extreme the value of your game economy, coin, gems, or booster in the game. Or native app, which can be added to the shops or in the exit side of your game. And on AdMob, we also usually update and continuously launch and try out new formats, so studios like you can benefit from it. I think on this slide, what is really important is really to think about your monetization design, which ad format really work for your genre. So we've already collected some data and experiments from our work with other studios, and from our experience, these top 4 categories. So hyper casual and casual game, games like Match 3, Idle, and Strategy have really different formats that working out for them. For example, like hyper casual and casual game, while the retention is not as long as other formats as other genres. Formats like banners and institutional are actually the main, revenue generating formats. And because the in-game economy also is less developed compared to other genres, things like rewarded ads format might not work as well. But if you look at match 3, where users are coming back more, retention is better, and you have the level-based structure of the game, things like institutional and rewarded ads can go hand in hand and work together. For games like Idle, where players need to wait and maybe wait until the item is ready, then rewarded ads can be something that you give the option for them to skip the waiting time or just speed up the games. And for games like strategy or slowly going through the mid-core, because of the fact that the game economies in those genres are actually very well developed, only formats like rewarded ads would work, because you want to retain the premium experience of the game, right? So really think about how you design your monetization when you do the game design. I'm gonna go into the second pillar, is really think about what's the best practice when you place your ad placement in your games. So first of all, we're gonna talk about rewarded ads. So you've heard me talk about how rewarded ads can work very well in games like Idle and strategy. We also have kind of like trial with rewarded institutional ads to monetize more players. So the difference between rewarded ads and rewarded institutional is rewarded ads is more like a pull format where user would need to opt in and find out your rewards ad. Whereas for rewarded institutional, it would show between transition and user can opt out to it. So if you are really struggling in terms of the opt-in percentage in your rewarded ads, maybe reward institutional is something you can try out. So I'm gonna talk more deeper into the rewarded ads best practice. So there are 3 principles in implementing rewarded ads here that we have. First is, how valuable is your rewarded ads? Do users actually find it helpful? And because the nature of rewarded ads is they would have to watch for 30 seconds, make it worth your players' while. Second principle is about discovery. Is it easy for user to actually find the rewarded ads? Do your prompts actually be seen by a lot of users? And then the third question, which really makes you think about the game economies in your game, is the desire to really rewatch it. So would your user, spend all the gems and coins that you've rewarded, and would they come back again for different type of rewarded ads in your game? That also really relate to your IAP strategy as well. So I'm gonna go dive deeper into each of the principles. So the first one that we talk about value. In this example, you can see Crazy Labs, which is one of the top studio in terms of downloads. And in their game, they have actually figured out that a lot of users, a lot of players are actually using the daily spin function to get more items in the game. And they have taken a step to really to add a rewarded ad after the first free spin. So then the user can still get the value, the gems, coins, and other rewards, but also contribute to the game economy of their apps. The second principle, like I said, is how easy it is for users to discover their apps. So we're going to talk about Hero Wars, which is one of the most popular RPG games with hundreds of millions of downloads. So in their studio store, you can actually see like a banner that say, hey, players, please make use of rewarded ads. So you have the players to have that mindset of, hey, rewarded ads is something that bringing value and something that they want to use. They also have in-game like a pop-up and a prompt to remind user that they can use rewarded ads in certain level or certain fight. Here you can see a screenshot of it. So really think about how you design this within your game, actually like even before you publish to the Play Store. And the third principle, again, is how to make the user watch more rewarded ads and use up the gems and the coins, the build booster that you were given. So, in this example, it is also another very well-known RPG game, so Handball. So they actually sprinkle rewarded ads at multiple stage of their game. So whether it's like certain battle, certain pass, so that the players are more encouraged. It's easier for players to rewatch and reuse the rewards. So in their example, players may encounter up to 19 rewarded video per day. And that is, like something that you can get your user into the benefit or the habit of using items in the game. And that also contribute to things like IAP. So if you're doing rewarded ads really well, not only you're gonna have increase in the in-app advertising revenue, but also increase the user engagement time, as well as their loyalty into their game. Now, I'm going to talk about also how to customize your reward ads for different audience, because you might have the question in mind that, hey, if I provide too many rewarded ads, then my users might not buy my item. So then my IAP revenue would suffer. So how do you kind of like counter that issue? Sorry, I'm gonna close the chat here. So we at AdMob working very closely with the data solution within Google. So you probably are very acquainted to Google Analytics, running the campaigns in ad. But Google Analytics for Firebase is also a tool that you can use to really segment the user, who are the purchaser and who are the non-purchase, and use Firebase remote config to actually have a different ad experience to those users. So one of the examples that we encourage you to explore is really to find a way to show more rewarded ads for non-purchaser, but also still keep the purchaser their journey with their IAP and less ads. So to do this, you can first create a new AdMob ad unit for rewarded ads. And then you go into Google Analytics for Firebase and you define who are the non-purchaser. With that, you're gonna set up a remote config experience on Firebase to only show rewarded ads, that ad unit for those users. And again, with anything that I'm saying it today, try to get the data to verify if that worked well for you. So some of the metrics that you can track for that experience is things like revenue or time engagement for the user. In this example, you can see how Mega Yogos, one of the biggest board game and card game studio, actually use remote config to optimize the coins granted with rewarded ads. And they actually see both increase in ad revenue and improve in retention for the new players. And how did they do that? Sorry. How did they do that? They actually had an experiment of, hey, some of our games are actually very hard for first-time users, first-time players to play, or some of their levels, some of the games are too hard that even older user fail multiple times. So then to reduce the churn and increase the rewarded ads that they use, they had try out, like a customized experience for new user and user who already failed multiple times in their game to get more amount compared to their user rewarded ads. So how they did that is to create a user segment, so that can be defined by either new user, so those have downloaded the apps only for 1 day, or a user who failed several times in a particular level. And once you have that audience segment, you can serve special rewards for the segment so that it's easier for these kind of players to pass the level and stay in your game longer. And like I said, with that, they had really success, not only on the revenue side, but also the churn side for them. Now, I'm going to talk about the next common format, which is interstitial. So like I said in the beginning, interstitial is a format that usually used between the transition. So when you have a new level, you complete a map, that's how you can slot in the interstitial format. And one thing to really keep in mind is that for different game genres, the kind of, we would used to say ad tolerance is really different, because the user in things in games like hyper casual can be okay with seeing more ads than user in puzzle game or in like strategy game. That is why you need to consider the frequency when implemented these type of ads. More is not always better. And another tip is really make sure that video is enabled. So interstitial video has much higher CPM than display interstitial. And CPM here is how much revenue divided by the impressions that you earn, times 1,000. Here, I'm also going to talk about how ad frequency actually affect your revenue. So ARPU here is a term that is average revenue per user, which I encourage all of you to track for your game, and also retention. So you can see there's a sweet spot that if you increase the ad density, the ad ARPU's not going to go up anymore. So then how to find this sweet spot to optimize both in terms of revenue and the user experience is very important for you. That's why I encourage you to use solutions like Firebase Remote Config to personalize the experience. So remote config is kind of personalization is a really new and innovative function from Firebase that backed up with AI that able to really try out and personalize different ad experience for your players. So how it works is that you can create an interstitial ad unit, different interstitial ad units with different frequency caps. For example, we can have one ad unit with a cap of 1 minute per interstitial ad, another one with 1.5 minutes, and another one with 2 minutes. And then you can use remote config parameter to control that frequency. And once you set up the personalization experience, you can actually see how different it is in terms of revenue, as well as things like engagement time with the Firebase experience. And with that, also going to talk about a new format to really try out and be creative for your game. One is App Open, which is one of the most successful format for AdMob and a lot of studios in 2022 and earlier this year. So the App Open ads really give you an extra screen and to monetize the user as early as when they open their game, and also when user resume from the apps, as you can see here in the screen. Another one is collapsible banner, which can be used again in those transition level. That so how the format works is that when there's a transition, you can see the bigger banner here on the left, and then user has the option to close it down, and it's gonna go back to the normal banner or adaptive banner. And we are actually seeing very strong performance for this. Here you can see Aria Studio, one of the studio actually in APAC that were able to increase the ad revenue by 60% with collapsible banner. And I think one point that I've been saying a lot during this presentation is that try to do a lot of testing and let the data decide for you what is best, what format is best, what is the reward value that would attract more user, what is the frequency that would be optimal for your play game. And this is also very easy using Firebase A/B testing. So all you need to do is really to create a new ad format and create the new ad unit within the AdMob interface, and then go into Firebase, define a show ad variance to control whether to show it or not, and then run A/B test to see the result. You can actually see what's the difference in terms of revenue. And I also encourage you to use metrics like time engagement to really hone in how it affects your user as well. Because end of the day, you still need to retain the user and balance out between revenue, user experience to grow your games. Here is an example of Crazy Labs, who use A/B testing to roll out App Open Ad. And they did see 5% ARPU lift. And just to mention again, Crazy Labs is one of the really top studio in terms of hyper casual and casual game. So if you think this might be something that would work out for your game, try to run an experiment and see how it impacts on user engagement and ARPU or things like revenue. So with that, I'm going to end my presentation with 3 key takeaways. When you think about in-app advertising, try to consider first is how to make the ad placement, the design working for your game. So select the right ad format is actually one of the first steps that you need to start thinking when you start building your games. Second is really to follow the best practice. So things like, principle for how an ad format might work for you, and also common placement ideas to implement, really to maximize player engagement and also the revenue that you have. And finally, again, try to test out before you roll out any experiment. And tools like Firebase A/B testing or remote config is really your true friend in this. So with that, I think we have a lot of time to discuss more and follow up with any of the questions that you might have. I've already seen some of the questions in the chat here.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy, for your session. I think there's a lot of insight here. Maybe before we go to the question, mostly it's for me. Does anyone have a question or want to raise hand? Maybe Calvin want to raise hand? No? Okay, it's okay. So I think one of the thing that I think the key takeaways is particularly right. Choose the right ad format, and then we follow the best practice and use A/B testing, right? I think one of the thing that bothers me about the ads is that we also learned previously from I think from Google ad team, right? Who also shares about the user acquisition, that the importance of the CPI click-through rate and etc. Right? And then when we are talking about the monetization in-game, there's like the impression when we show as much as possible, right, to the user, right? But I think do we need to make sure that the user will click the ads, or is it like it's not our focus? That So I think if we show a lot of ads to the player, that we are encouraging them to watch ad, and that's not correct, right? Because they want to watch another ads, right? But it will reduce the click to right. So what do you think about that, right? Should we spam the impression, or do we
Sure.
moderate?
Yeah, I think there's I guess a few questions in that sense. So first of all, I'm gonna talk about how CPM is actually calculated and controlled. So because I think we as a network for AdMob, we kind of get your inventory and then pay the CPM. But network like AdMob also got paid by advertiser side. So if the user within your game actually convert more in those campaigns, then they are rated as higher value users and they would have higher CPM. Having said that, as a developers, there's not a lot of things you can control in terms of, like what's the click-through rate and how to encourage, because also if you encourage user to click in your game, that is also like a policy violation. So in order to optimize your revenue and CPM, the best way is really, again, think about how many impressions per user that you can show to the users. So if you have more impressions in your session or your ads, that might increases the chance of they clicking in through the ad, the click-through rate, and also the CPM. And also think about like the different formats, right? So formats like institutional and rewarded ads are usually having more click-through rate just because they are you're like more present to the users. So try to think of ways that you can incorporate those formats better. In terms of CPM, I can also share that placement like rewarded ads would have the best CPM. And then next would be institutional. then native and banner would roughly having the same mix. So yes, does that answer your question in terms
I
of?
see. So because we cannot control the CTR, we just focus on the impression, right? That's the gist of it, right? So I think related to that, you also have like the banner, the collapsible banner that
Yes.
also used to be only one line, and then you have
Mhm.
more. So and it said that it also increased the revenue, right? Does that mean that when you make it collapsible, people will have bigger CTR, or is it still what the same impression, right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
the question is that why the collapsible banner gives better revenue if because it has the same impression.
Got
Okay,
it.
that's
So collapsible banner is one of the newer format that we have. And the way that it appears is that when you go through the section that you implement collapsible banner, at first it's gonna show up as 300 by 250, which is slightly bigger, almost half of the screen. And then user has an option to minimize it. So because it is usually bigger than the normal banner, that usually comes with a higher click-through rate, and thus the CPM from collapsible banner and the performance is better than the usual banner. But again, try to think about how you balance the CPM revenue and the user experience.
okay. See, okay. Yeah, we also have a question from Dan, but I think I will ask one more question from me, right?
Sure.
So you are saying about the sweet spot that we shouldn't give too much ad, that it will reduce the retention, the engagement, but we should not give it too little, so it will give us less revenue, right? And then it will be from A/B testing. So
Yeah.
is there an industry benchmark like the data that we can look at that for this genre usually this is the sweet spot, or is it like totally different, right? Surely because Google has Firebase, right? You must know the sweet spot for most
Yes.
successful games. Like, is it like any data available for us to learn?
I understand. Unfortunately, I'm not able to share the benchmark, but you're right. Each different game genre would have like different, sweet spot. So think about it that way. The more premium or the more IAP revenue that you have, or the higher the retention, usually the frequency of interstitial would be lower. So if you talk about like a hyper casual game, the frequency and the chances of you running into an interstitial ad is higher because that works well for that particular genre. But if you go in towards mid-core or games like strategy, because the user there, the segment would be less tolerance on ads. So interstitial might not work as well. So my answer to this is, if you really want to know what frequency works best for you, really the best way to do is run an A/B test experiment on Firebase, or you can also do a personalization, like I just shared. So you let Firebase and Google AI also do that work for you.
Okay. Next we have question from Dan. Dan, maybe you want to share the question. Yeah, I think that asking about the GDPR impact on the ads integration. So is it yeah? What do you think about the GDPR? Do we have to
Yeah,
use the GDPR screen in our game if we
sure.
want to showcase ads in the game?
Sure. I'm gonna read out loud the question so that everyone can also understand. So Dan asked that, I don't know if it's okay to ask here, but there's a new regulation in AdMob that we need to implement UMP SDK. Is that an obligation to use that SDK, or we can make our own GDPR screen in our game? So I wanted to correct that. the notification on AdMob Policy Center or UI that you're seeing, and actually not asking you to implement Google's UMP SDK specifically. However, we are rolling out a new requirement with that end of this year or early next year. All game developers or any publishers that have traffic from Europe and the UK would need to have a GDPR message. So with that, you can use either Google's UMP solution or another third-party solution or your own solution. However, if you use the third party or your own solution, you have to be certified by Google. So after this, I can share with the team, the link to how you can apply for certification for GDPR message or content management platform. And you can follow up by that.
I see. So it's only available if we are publishing in the Europe, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We have a question from Arfi. Go ahead, Vi.
Hi, Tracy. Thanks for your insight. This is really interesting topic. So as you say, different genre of the game could affect the ads, right? So if our games is a horror games that maybe contains jump scare, should we add trigger warning on the ad creative, or Google will eventually review the ads before it published? So because I'm afraid it will fail the policy, and maybe is there any tips for the horror game developer to promote the ads to be safe and according to the policy from Google? Thank you.
Thank you, Afi. I think that's a very interesting question. So in terms of horror games, when you publish an app or a game on Google Play, you also have to register kind of the content that you will be, targeting or available in the apps. So with that signal on AdMob, we also have kind of, like different segments of advertisement that are available for those genre. I assume your apps would probably be registering for, user probably 18 plus or 15 plus. So with that, we do have a limitation in terms of what advertisement will be able to show in your app. And so that on how to protect the advertiser side. Now your question is about how to, warn the players within your apps. So you can do a couple of things. So you can actually code yourself in terms of countdown. So if you have an interstitial ad, you can count down like, hey, ad is loading soon. So the user would be aware of that event's gonna come in. And I would also encourage you to test if that practice is better in terms of experience for your user. But that's possible, yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Tracy.
No worries.
Okay. Okay, maybe is there any question from other people? So I think yeah, okay, Calvin, go ahead.
Hey, Calvin.
Actually, maybe the others already asked the things that I wanted to ask. Now I want to ask about ethics. So you see, in your examples, you show that when the developers want to add a rewarded ads, they put a button like watch video or a button like a symbol of a video.
Yeah.
Then what if I personally don't do that? Let's see, I write a button like free. And then when the player press the button, they will watch an ad.
Yeah, so that's a question on...
Good question.
Yeah, so that's a question on policy of how you show or how you do placement of rewarded ads. So as our best practice and policy, we recommend all partners that doing rewarded ads show and indicate that the user actually have to watch of rewarded ads, right? If you only place a free button, then the user cannot, they don't expect to watch of reward ads at all, and that's actually violate the policy of us. That's why we encourage. So you can do customize. You can do like different video button, but make sure that your user would know to expect that they have to watch a rewarded ads in order to get that for free. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but when you mention about policy, is it the AdMob policy or Google Play policy or in general policy? Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's a AdMob policy because we want to protect. So there's three players in the ecosystem that we always want to make sure that we protect, right? One is advertiser, two is players, and three is developers like yourself.
Yeah, maybe to add add the question from Calvin, right? I think in Agate we have a case that we forgot to showcase what is the amount of crystal that they get after watching the ads, and then our ads gets warned a lot of times by Google and forced to be taken down a bit before we fix it and upload it again, right? So yeah, before you guys get the trouble, please don't do that.
I understand. Yeah,
we get the warning from Google.
I would recommend if in-app advertising revenue is big for you, go into the AdMob policy center or hub center to read all the best practice there and requirements there. So it makes sure that you compliant with the policy and you don't run into cases like that, because that can set you back couple of days or couple of weeks even.
Also, yeah, okay, yeah. Is there anyone want to ask question? Because I have another question. Okay, Ki, go ahead, Ki.
Okay, I want to ask about collapsible ads. Is it only available on portrait mode because you're not showing on the landscape mode?
Yeah, so because of how it shows right now, it's more suitable for the vertical mode. I think for landscape mode, it's more difficult because it won't fit into the screen.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
No
So
worries.
only for people who the game are the portrait mode, right? Is only portrait mode.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Because before I ask question. Okay. So I think one of the question is that so if I understand well, the interstitial is supposed to be on the transition, and then if we give the reward, we will give it with the reward ads, right? But I think there are some experiment that people are giving the interstitial and then giving a little bit of very small reward, just a compensation for the 3 or 5 seconds that they watch the ad, right? And then asking them to remove the ads, etc. Right? But I also heard that there's like a policy that there is we are forbidden to give any kind of reward after interstitial. So yeah, can you clarify about that? Can we do it to make user less annoyed with the interstitial so they are playing more because we give a tiny bit of rewards after the interstitial?
I see. So that's a very tricky one. So one thing, we do not encourage you to reward users after they watch an interstitial ads, because it would seem like you are incentivize user to watch ads, which is violating our policy. Because so the users are actually should not be encouraged to watch the ad unless it's a rewarded ads that bring actual value. You know what I mean? So instead of giving a reward ads or encourage user to watch the institutional ads, why is it not possible for you to do rewarded ads instead?
No, I think the reason is because reward ad is like 30 seconds, right? But
Yes.
the interest is only 3 seconds. So so the main idea is that because people will get annoyed usually when they get essential, so we give them a little bit of some kind of compensation, usually like a very trivial item not like the premium currency one, but just to okay, at least I get something out of the time that I spend on the tertiary. What do
I
you think
got
about
it.
it?
Got
It's
it.
not really giving rewards. It's like giving like very small compensation just to make them less annoyed.
Yeah, but that is not like compliant with our policy. One thing I can potentially think might work for you is sorry, I'm gonna just go back to this slide. Is rewarded institutional. So with it's skippable within 5 seconds, and if the user like try if his users still want to complete the rewarded ads, they will get the usual rewarded item. But if they not, they can skip after 5 seconds. So
Oh, I see.
yes,
I
so
see.
this
I
is a
agree.
format that kind of a hybrid between institutional and rewarded ads that might work for you. But however, just keep in mind that this format, because of the way that user opt in and because user has to wait less than institutional and the normal rewarded ads, the CPM for this format is lower. So if you want to try out, I think it's worth it, but just keep in mind the expectation and then test out how you can, mix and match these formats together.
I see. I see.
I also want to add in a point that when you said user has to watch in institutional and they not getting anything else, I think that's also like a mindset that you can educate your players, because your players actually get to play your game for free, right? So watching ads is a way to get access and contribute to your in-game economy. So it's important to kind of
I
educate
see.
users about
I
that.
see.
Yeah.
I see. So yeah, so I think that you mean that before we show the first ad, we give like some kind of information why the ad is necessary for the game.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's very
Yes.
right. Okay. Uh, with that context, is it good idea that before we show, I think one of the things that really bothers me about the ads is that I think for the reward ads, it's like because it's the player who are choosing to watch, it's okay for them, right? Because they can opt out. But for the initial, it's kind of forced. With the banner, it's there, but it's very small, so it's not
Yeah.
really annoyed, but it's a bit annoying. So yeah, that's why I think a lot of people usually gets annoyed with the interstitial rather than the reward ads. So I think is it the good idea that before we show our first interstitial, we also uh, provide option for people to buy the in-app purchase to remove ads before
Yeah.
that. Is it like the good
Yes.
strategy, and what do you think about that? And is it a success story? But
Yes, so there are a lot of studios that I know that actually they testing out the position of the prompt for IAP. So, but it really depends on your game genre. If your game genre is, slightly towards the mid-core, then that might work. So how the studios usually do is that they test out different position, and they also test out different user segments. For example, if they see a user keep coming back to their game but still on the free mode, after showing an ad, they will have a pop-up say, hey, do you enjoy our games? If you do, you want to support us with an ad pass for free, or um or if you're not choosing to buy the ad pass, then please then advertising is some way that we are making money. So just to give user the choice of, hey, if you don't want to buy, you can keep using our app for free, but need to ads will be there. But if they willing to, they can buy things like ad free pass. So instead of just IAP items. You can also have ad pass, and that would be, you know, a complementary way that you can think about your revenue stream.
I see, I see. So it's after the first session, after the first ads impression, right? Okay, yeah, yeah. Okay. I think this is also very what I really want to know. So we also have a lot of games that use the in-app purchase that if you buy this one, it will remove all the ads, yeah, and even
Yes.
including the reward video. So we can get all the rewards without watching any video at all. It's one of the games that I played, and it's a bit costly, like almost 10 USD
Yeah.
to get that. But I think, yeah, from this question of from the AdMap, right? Because if you ask, it will give a lot more revenue over time, with compared with the only one time, and then you will never get any revenue again, right? Well, what do you think about that, and how much price can we set that justifiable if it from the revenue of the ads?
That is also like a tricky question, and I can suggest how you can test and how you can set the price. This is again, I think first of all, you have to measure what is your usual LTV for non-purchasers. So different countries would have different ARPU, right? And then once you can calculate that number, then you would be able to price your ad-free pass. So it is recommendable that your ad-free pass would be same or more than the LTV of the non-purchasers. So then you would be able to be profitable, right? But it's not a simple question. So try to track those kind of metrics. It's really important. Things like ARPU, LTV, and then test out like different pricings as well. And also important to, you know, have the customized pricing for different markets. Yeah.
So does it mean that we shouldn't release the remove ads in-app purchase when we first release the game? Because when we first release the game, we have no idea like
Yeah.
the ARPU for our game, or is it like okay, and then we will adjust the price after all we get the data? Yeah, what do you think about that?
I think for this, I'm sure that, you know, on the Google Ads team, they also recommend to have a soft launch when you release a game. So when you do a soft launch, you will be able to get an idea of what's the LTV for the game specifically that you have. And then it's a process of really optimizing. So, and I don't really have like one answer that fits all of yours. Another way is also do market research. You can also kind of see what's the competitors pricing out there to apply for your game, but then always use data to optimize and see what's best for you.
Okay, okay, yeah, get it. Okay, we are 2 minutes away from the 1 hour session. Yeah, maybe we have last question. Is anyone here want to ask? Or do you want to raise hand? Okay, go ahead. Anyone? No? Okay. Yeah, maybe I will go ahead then. Do you have like is there what is the best way to get the data from the from the revenue from the ads? Does AdMob publish like the data for the public to see, to learn? Yeah, so they can learn about the market. Is it like, yeah, do you have like to use like the app any etc., or is there any kind of the data provided by AdMob to kind of tinker with this one?
Yeah, so that is a no for your question, because we have a responsibility to keep data privacy for all the developers that we work with, right? So it's very
I
hard
see.
for us to publish those numbers. But as you mentioned, you can also, like get a sense from other third party, for example, data.ai or Sensor Tower, to get a sense of, what's the genre are actually doing well on in-app advertising, what genre are doing well on IAP, and think about like how you monetize your games forward.
Yeah, I think because on the App Annie and Sensor Tower, App Magic, they usually only showcase the revenue, right? And there's it's not really clear whether it's from in-app purchase on the or ads. And I think I assume it's morely from the in-app purchase, right? Yeah, or maybe is it like the both comment from both perspective? What do you know about that?
Well, I think each of the platform would have their own like methodology, so I'm not able to comment on that. So I would encourage you to like reach out to them. But yeah, unfortunately, we want to keep your information safe, so it's very hard for us to share that publicly.
Okay, yeah, because it's very hard to get like the estimated revenue from the ads, right? It's kind of mystery box. Okay,
Yeah.
I think that concludes our session. We already passed the 1 hour mark. Thank you for your time, Tracy. Yeah, hopefully the session gives a lot of insight for everyone here and help them to implement better in-game ads so they can get revenue. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you everyone for participating, and good luck with the GAMESEED, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Oke, goodbye Tracy. Oke, buat yang lain jangan cabut dulu ya. Kita ada announcement ya. Thank you for everyone. Please stay here for announcement, and for Tracy you can go ahead because we have another session after this.
Thank you,
Okay, thank you
Tracy.
Tracy.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, goodbye.
Okay.
Oke.